The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 38. Don't eat no my chi on an empty stomach. Lame was aghast, looking at Tang Fan like she was looking at a ghost. It wasn't just her. Everyone else was completely shocked by those words. With how observant Wang Zhi was, he knew that Tang Fan was probably right just by looking at Lame's expression. He looked at her stomach in disbelief. Is that true? How did you know? He asked. Tang Fan didn't care to answer him, continuing to pay attention to the changes in Lame's expression. You've been Junior Lady Zhou's servant for many years. It would have been impossible for you to betray and frame her, if you didn't have strong reasons. Was it to protect someone behind you? Who is he? The father of your child. Lame had seen spectacles like this several times before, where one would be forced into an impasse from being interrogated with successive questions. All she could do was continuously shake her head, wanting to refute, yet not knowing how to start doing that. She had always been someone not good with speaking with others to begin with. She had been reticent by habit and just have presence to be inconspicuous. Now that Tang Fan had put her on front, others had carefully considered her and found that something was indeed off about her. Seeing her lowered her head and continued to play dumb as if she had steeled her heart to conceal things until the very end, Wang Zhi slightly lifted his chin. A warden immediately understood him, assuming a posture like he was going to draw his blade and stab Lame in the stomach. Were this strike to go down, you won't be able to keep the child inside you. If a treatment was not made in time, there might even be one corpse with 2 lives. The Western Depot could handle someone like this with ease, of course. As expected, her entire face turned deathly pale at that statement. Her entire body began to tremble. She bit her lip, tears falling down like rain. Tang Fan and Wang Zhi patiently waited until her false bravado crumpled, but Lady Lin wasn't able to hold back for long. She threw herself over, then raised her hands to slap Lame several times in succession with both hands, hitting until blood flowed out of the corners of her mouth and her cheeks both swelled, cursing as she did so. Don't you already have an engagement with the son of a front courtyard manager? Is this wild seed his? Did Lady Zhou make you do it? Speak. Speak. Her son's tragic death had made her heartbroken and hysterical. Just for the sake of questioning the murderer, she firmly restrained herself, unlikely to go as mad as she had before. Tang Fan and Wang Zhi both frowned slightly. Before they could say anything, Han Fang had already come forward to lead her away. Miss Xian. Calm down, wait for her to speak. Master, my heart aches. Ah Zhao was so cute and thoughtful, how can they bear it? How? She wailed, falling into his arms. I know. He also looked pained, patting her back and quietly placating her while he passed her off to her maid to lead away. Tang Fan looked at Lame, who was struck dumb. Is it Han Hui? She jolted a bit. He decided to talk further of his own conjectures. The father of your child is Han Hui. Wang Zhi had a faster reaction, giving a direct command as soon as he heard Tang Fan's words and saw Lame's expression. Go and bring Han Hui over at once. Understood. The Western Depot wardens took their command and hurried off. How did you deduce that Lame and Han Hui had an illicit relationship? He asked Tang Fan. When we came to this residence last time and met with Han Zhao's boy servant, do you remember the very first thing he said? Wang Zhi didn't understand him. Why would I remember that? What did he say? Tang Fan sighed. When the boy servant saw us with Han Hui back then, he said, Elder young master, you finally came. What does that show? It shows that before then, Han Hui had never gone to see the servant, and that was his most glaring giveaway. As you know, Han Hui said himself that he and Han Zhao were close as brothers and he had watched him grow up. His brother is now dead, the reason for it unknown, but on the day the servant saw Han Zhao off to the palace, Han Hui never went to interrogate him about how his little brother died after Lady Lin locked him up. Doesn't that not make sense? There's only one possibility for that. Han Hui knew well why Han Zhao died but didn't want to meddle too much and expose his own involvement, so when she locked him up, he acted like he knew nothing. Furthermore, when he was talking to us, he intentionally drew the topic towards Lady Lin, then took advantage of when we went to meet her to make us see her unstable personality with our own eyes. That would provide credence to her having a poor temper as well as many enemies in the Han family, which made it quite plausible that someone had moved against Han Zhao because they were unhappy with her. Thus, from the very beginning, we would inevitably believe that his death had pertained to conflicts between the women of the estate, especially with the existence of one like Junior Lady Zhou. Lady Lin and her have no shortage of enmity, and her late husband had been a doctor. She fulfilled every condition. However, I said long before this that there are many causes in this world with trails to follow. Do nothing, and no mistakes are made. Do too much, and too many mistakes are made, revealing all the more clues. If you don't want anyone to find things out, the best thing to do was to do nothing at all. Han Hui had prepared all the evidence to convict Junior Lady Zhou in a tidy fashion, even taking it upon himself to place the needle right under our noses for us to find. How could there ever be something so perfect beneath these skies? Moreover, the last time we came here, I noticed that Lame frequently did this little movement where she would touch her lower abdomen from time to time. When does anyone do something like that? If your stomach is upset, you'll constantly be rubbing it. If your head hurts, you'll constantly be feeling it. What about the lower abdomen? Could it be that she had a stomachache? Her face had looked as fine as ever then, though. In addition, when she saw Junior Lady Zhou being taken away, she didn't dare to go block it, as if she was afraid of getting pushed and bumped. It's not that difficult to put things together with careful observation. What did he mean, not that difficult? Wang Zhi inwardly curled his lips at Tang Fan's seemingly self-effacing remark. He believed his own observation skill to be absolutely terrific, but even he hadn't taken notice of those details. In other words, some people were divinely preordained for occupations like this. Wang Zhi would never admit that he had some admiration for Tang Fan. With all of that said, Tang Fan looked towards Lame again. Isn't that right? Someone find a female doctor so that we can know for sure. And have her get rid of the child while she's at it, Wang Zhi coldly added from the side. Only now did Lame genuinely get frightened, her tears flowing without cease. She seemed to want to throw herself forward but was being firmly held back by the Western Depot wardens, so she could only look at Tang Fan and implore him. No. Master, I'm begging you, spare me. Spare my child, it's innocent. He stared at her. Is it Han Hui's? He asked. Yes. She seemed to lose all her strength with that one word. If you want lenient treatment, you need to explain everything in its entirety. Since the first step had already been taken, the next ones were nothing to be embarrassed about. Wiping away her tears, she began to recount the events of her getting familiar with Han Hui. When Junior Lady Zhou became a widow, Lame had gone with her up north. She had been nothing more than a little maid from a little family that knew nothing at the time. Lodging under the Han roof with her lady, there was no longer any need to be worried that the young widow would be harassed by others, but large families had large influence. The conflicts inside it were many. The young master of the second branch, Han Hui, was educated and of gentle nature, yet he suffered from having an adoptive mother like Lady Lin. She would always find fault with him, even believing that he had been sent by his grandmother to monitor her, which made their mother and son relationship terrible. Lame had seen too many instances where he was trembling in fear before his mother, softly trying to calm her, and couldn't help but pity him. Every once in a while, they would meet by chance and exchange a couple words. She got her very first love and he developed feelings for the pretty maid. Over time, their relationship developed, but then Junior Lady Zhou obeyed her aunt, thusly engaging Lame to someone in the front courtyard. The former believed that she had gotten a good marriage for Lame, but, Unbeknownst to her, the latter's heart had long been given to someone else. After Lamei learned of this, she was thunderstruck, then went to find Han Hui. He wasn't merely messing around with her, either. He wanted to take her as a proper concubine. With her status, she obviously couldn't be a primary wife, which she was also well aware of. Being his concubine wouldn't be a letdown. Against expectations, someone in position suddenly promised her to someone else, immediately putting the two of them in a bind. He couldn't go seek out Lady Lin for something like this, because he knew that not only would she not help him get out of this, she might also loathe Lamei on account of her status as junior Lady Zhou's maid. While Han Fang did genuinely cherish him, he was a man and it wouldn't be good for him to meddle in the household affairs. He thus went straight to the family's matriarch, who was also Han Chi's wife and junior Lady Zhou's aunt, Lady Zhou. Lady Zhou didn't like those of the second branch, so she didn't agree to his request to take Lamei as a concubine. Because of concerns he had, he never once mentioned that they already had hidden relationship. All right, no more gossip. No matter what twists and turns were in the hearts of these young lovers, nor whatever they thought up to rectify this, the bottom line was that they had a significant relationship. When she came to secretly liaison with him during this period, she noticed that something was a bit off about his behavior. He refused to explain after repeated questioning, so she merely believed that he had been senselessly scolded by his mother again, and thus, she comforted him at that time. Then, he asked her a few things about the acupuncture points of the human body. She suspected nothing, both teaching him how to recognize some acupuncture points and finally explaining some of their restrictions. Being clever, he retained things pretty much as soon as he learned them, and he learned them very meticulously, even getting clarification on how many con the needle needed to go in. She had asked him what he was learning this stuff for, and he answered that his mother's health was poor, so he wanted to learn some acupuncture. Then, he might curry favor with her and get rebuked less. Some days later, she had been shocked at the realization that her monthly period hadn't come for 2 months. Junior Lady Zhou's late husband had been a doctor and she knew medical theory herself, which Lamei had absorbed from following her around all the time, to the extent that she could prescribe for common ailments. She, of course, knew that she was not ill, but pregnant. At that moment, Han Hui had suddenly come looking for her, asking her to hide a needle in junior Lady Zhou's room. Lamei hadn't experienced much, but she wasn't at all stupid. She had to question why he would do that. He refused to tell her at first, so she had to share with him that she was with child. After the initial amazement, Han Hui finally explained a bit of the issue to her, but not everything. All he said was that this was Han Zhao's cause of death and that the palace was sending someone to investigate, possibly coming to search the Han family in short order. That was why he needed her help with this. One party was her mistress, and the other was her child's father. In quite a difficult position, she ultimately decided to go along with Han Hui. Hence, they had found the needle in junior Lady Zhou's room. Her courtyard was for women only. Even children like Han Zhao couldn't come and go from it frequently, to say nothing of Han Hui. Only people like Lamei that lived there could rush in whenever they pleased and place the needle there before Tang Fan's group dropped by. All these events were finally put together due to her explanation, the truth finally getting revealed. At this moment, one of the people previously dispatched by Wang Zhi to arrest Han Hui returned. Chief Eunuch, when we went to arrest him at the Imperial Hanlin Academy, the boy had heard the word on the wind ahead of time and fled. Several of us are already chasing him, while I came to report this to you. Wang Zhi's face sank. You're all trash. You can't catch one weak scholar that doesn't even have the strength to wrangle a chicken. If you don't catch him, there's no need for any of you to come back. The other was so browbeaten by him, he didn't dare to say anything. Lady Lin suddenly broke free of Han Fang's supporting arm, shoving him roughly. You see? You see, she bellowed. Back when your mother said that we had to adopt Han Hui, I disagreed. Now look. We raised a white-eyed wolf that took Azao's life with it. Why don't you go and ask her if she's satisfied with seeing how broken our family is now? Miss Xian. She cried as she sneered. How innocent my Azao was. He treated Han Hui like his own big brother but had no idea that this brother wanted him dead. As for my madness, it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't endured torment from your mother and sister-in-law. Your family is no place for humans to live. They killed my Azao. That said, she charged forward again, wanting to strike Lame but was held back by the Western Depot. The wardens didn't dare to use much force, so they could only get tangled up with her where they were, making a momentarily chaotic scene. Haven't you made enough of a mess? Tang Fan shouted, his voice overwhelming the spectacle's noise. Lady Lin had to stop her actions, looking over at the source of the sound. Madam Han, he said to her, even if the murderer has now been found, my duty here has come to its end. The rest of the work is all for the Han family to do. I shouldn't be sticking my nose in this, but you keep saying Han Zhao saw Han Hui as his big brother. What about you, then? Did you ever see Han Hui as your own son? He took a deep breath. Everything that happens in this world has a cause and a result. When he was adopted by you, he was a toddler who was just barely able to walk. Was he already learned in how to distinguish between good and bad, benevolence and evil back then? If it weren't for your prejudice against him because of your mother-in-law, your refusal to teach him properly, your blind blame heaped on him whenever something happened, and even your abusive words, how could Han Hui's heart ever be at peace once Han Zhao was born, and he compared how you invariably pampered him as opposed to himself? How could he not think of that? The dissatisfaction within him accumulated over the years, turning into resentment, even hatred, which culminated in a moment of madness where he plotted against his younger brother. This was his mistake alone, of course. Murder is a crime and national law dictates that it be punished by beheading, but can you really absolve yourself of this? The reason why this all came to be today is something you need to ask yourself. Would it still have happened, if you had treated the two brothers the same from the beginning? She stared at him blankly. Her hands were held up in midair, maintaining their recent posture of being about to slap Lame, but she slowly put her arms down. Her expression fluctuated. Confusion, abhorrence, remorse, all sort of emotions appeared on it, one after the other, intertwining into an even more complex expression. Human hearts were concealed with skin. There was no way for him to know whether she actually did feel some regrets towards her past conduct, but he did see her slowly lower her arms, cover her face with both her hands and let out a quiet sob. Han Fang sighed, pulling her into his arms. What happened today is also my fault, he said, grief-stricken. Of course he was at fault. As the emperor's teacher, however, it wasn't suitable for Tang Fan to assign too much blame to him. At this point, Wang Zhi gave him a look and then they walked out. Once outside, Wang Zhi grinned. Since Junior Lady Zhou has been proven innocent, I'll release her later, but Lame needs to be brought in for questioning. As for Han Hui, once he's found, things will have come full circle. You really didn't let anyone down on this, solving it so quickly and neatly. As soon as I get Han Hui's confession, I'll send a memorial up reporting your merits. Promotion to the next level will be no problem then, to say nothing of anything else. Tang Fan wasn't smiling, though. Do you really think this has come full circle? He countered. Wang Zhi put away his smile, glaring at him coldly. Yes. The murderer is found, the case is closed. It's done, he said pointedly. The other side. Why should you lie to yourself? No matter how competent Han Hui is, there's no way that he would happen to know that on the day of Han Zhao's murder, Consort Wan would coincidentally be sending soup over. Furthermore, he's not someone from the palace, so it's impossible for him to have ever gotten inside it. He must have had an accomplice on the inside. Who might that person inside the palace be? Don't you think that there's still a lot of questionable parts to this and that the investigation should continue? Wang Zhi nodded. I'll do a follow-up, but it's going to be the Western Depot's business after this. You don't need to worry about it anymore. Just wait for your promotion to be decreed with peace of mind. Tang Fan understood. The other clearly wanted to keep him away to make things easy to cover up should something was found that no one should know about. Seeing that he didn't answer, Wang Zhi continued. Tang Runking, don't dig too much about things you shouldn't. As an official that's been doing this for a long time, I think you're agreeable as a person. Don't imitate those repulsive civil officials. Tang Fan spread his arms. You shouldn't have made me investigate this in the first place, then. If I haven't guessed incorrectly, the attendant Yuan Liang at the Crown Prince's side and the maidservant Fu Ru at Consort Wan's side are both suspicious. If you're determined to investigate them yourself, will you be able to ensure that the final result is within your control? Were Consort Wan to learn of this, she would infer from Yuan Liang's connection to the prince that the latter wanted to use Han Zhao's death to frame her, then go cry to His Majesty. Have you thought about these things? How could I not have? Don't say it like you're the only one thinking about the prince. Wang Zhi raged. Were you, an outside official, to interfere with this, there's no way she wouldn't know. The best method would be for me to secretly check out the palace beforehand. I never said that I was going to interfere, Tang Fan answered innocently. Why are you so riled up? Wang Zhi was not happy. You're the worst. This shouldn't have anything to do with the prince, but it's hard to say that certain people won't painstakingly try to implicate him after they learn of this. Please be careful, Eunuch Wang. I know. I know. Wang Zhi said impatiently. You're a minor prefect, it's not your place to worry about these things. If I wanted to disadvantage the prince, why would I have recommended you to start with? Since the other knew the score, Tang Fan said no more. The reason why Wang Zhi had previously wanted to downplay this was because he was afraid of some implication to the consort or the crowned prince happening behind the scenes. Of the two sides, one was his former master and the other was the crowned prince. He didn't want to offend either of them. Since this was proven to be unrelated to both, though, Tang Fan trusted that he would be able to process it impartially. The depot wardens that had gone to chase Han Hui quickly captured him. The young man, anxious from the pursuit, had planned to jump into the river, only to get kicked right into it from behind by his pursuers. He was no swimmer, thrashing about for a long time in the water before he let the wardens fish him up, putting this to its end. Since they had already gotten Lamei's confessions, he couldn't refute anything. His testimony was very similar to Tang Fan's conjectures. At the very beginning, he had been contacted by Yuan Liang. Han Hui couldn't enter the palace, but he did see Han Zhao off whenever the boy came. He certainly had a chance to run into Yuan Liang when coming before its gates. The latter had learned from Han Zhao that Lady Lin was horrible to Han Hui, so he enticed him to get rid of Han Zhao, saying that he could cover for him due to his connections within the palace. Han Hui was completely taken aback at first and resolutely refused. Yuan Liang hadn't pressured him, but the other was still on edge for several days after he returned. When Yuan Liang never brought the matter up again, his heart was not only not at peace but had grown all the more restless. Han Hui never dared approach Lady Lin about Lamei. She had seen him talking to her multiple times and she would berate and insult him several times over it. His many years of gathered indignation finally exploded and he sought Yuan Liang out of his own volition to consent to his plan. What happened after went completely as expected. Yuan Liang and Han Hui communicated in advance to come to an agreement on the date it would happen. Han Hui went to Han Zhao's room the night before, wanting to sleep together with him. They weren't brothers of the same mother, but Han Zhao had highly respected him. If he hadn't, then he wouldn't have complained in front of Yuan Liang about his mother's poor treatment of his brother, which was how he knew about the troubles in the Han family. Back on topic, after Han Zhao heard that Han Hui wanted a sleepover with him, he agreed enthusiastically to it. The difference in age between the brothers was fairly big, but they normally had a good relationship, where Han Hui would occasionally come chat and nap with him. No one thought much of it, nor expected that he would take this opportunity to calculate the time Han Zhao would get up, then stick the needle in his shufan acupuncture point. The needle was extremely thin and short, so even if it entered the shufan point, it would be stopped over in the surface skin for a time. Then, in the wake of Han Zhao getting up, putting on his clothes, and moving around, it was bound to gradually move deeper into the body, eventually causing the tragedy. However, Han Hui had only initiated the action at Yuan Liang's instructions. Regarding what happened after Han Zhao entered the palace, or what chance Yuan Liang had exploited to cover up for him, Han Hui had no idea in the least. He had committed the crime of fratricide due to momentary bout of madness, grudges attacking his heart. The great Ming's law had very many clauses, so there would inevitably be one tailor-made for him, but as Tang Fan had said, this matter was far from over. Why had Yuan Liang colluded with Han Hui? Was it his own idea, or inspired by someone behind him? And how did he coincidentally know that Consort Wan was going to deliver mung bean lily soup that day? Was there another collaborator in the form of the maid, Furu? Why did she do it for? Many riddles still had yet to be solved, but he was now powerless to solve it. Due to what had been said previously, Wang Zhi would not be giving him any chances to stick his hand in this. When the murderer hadn't yet surfaced, he could still go in and out of the palace in the name of investigation, but Wang Zhi would now refuse to accompany him in doing so again. Unless the emperor ordered it, it would otherwise be fully impossible for him to enter a restricted area at will with his status as a mere Shuntian prefect. If anyone else had gotten to this stage, they would regard this as a perfectly completed assignment, but Tang Fan felt like it was a half-finished task. Even so, he wasn't the one in control here. After exiting the Western Depot, he went straight home. During his running all over the place these days, he couldn't find the time to eat even a few bites of rice. Once things wound down, anyone would feel particularly exhausted, he was no exception. The sense of disappointment he felt was especially heavier when he returned to find that Dong was gone and Suizhou still wasn't back yet. Suizhou not being back yet was expected because he had apparently traveled to Jiangxi to specially oversee a case. He had left in such a hurry that Tang Fan didn't get the chance to ask for details. Dong, that little girl, had gotten used to living here. After she made friends with the neighbors, her heart went wild, since there were a couple of girls her age next door that she played well with. Their neighbors' elders would invite her over to eat at their house. Sui Bi was pretty close to her, too, making the small girl seem like she was innately good at connecting with people, an aspect that was extraordinarily similar to her big brother, Tang Fan. That last part was one that Master Tang had shamelessly tacked on himself, of course. Tang Fan had been frequently out of the house lately, his 3 meals not at set times. Dong would inevitably felt lonely being along in this 3-courtyard complex, so she wouldn't be able to resist running off to call on her little playmates. As a result, he happened to come back early today, yet there was no one around to cook him food. Seeing that the kitchen had no smoke rising off of it, he felt disappointed even more. He had lived alone before but hadn't thought anything of it then. Now that he was used to being a part of a family, he felt disheartened upon suddenly returning to his bachelor life. Lamenting that it was easy to go from thriftiness to extravagance but hard the other way around, he went behind the kitchen to see what food Dong had left behind. After rummaging around, he luckily managed to rummage out a dish of delicate no mai chi with mung sesame filling. They had already gone cold, but that didn't ever matter for pastries. He was too lazy to start up the stove himself, and even if he really had to cook, he wouldn't be able to, so he just ate the no mai chi while drinking plain water. His stomach having been empty to begin with, eating something hard to digest like glutinous rice along with fluid caused the rice to inflate in his stomach, which made it start to hurt in no time at all. Choking wordlessly in pain, he sat there, debating on if he should go see a doctor, or just bear with it until the ache had passed. Then, the outer door of the courtyard got knocked on. He was forced to stand up, clutching his stomach as he went to the door. He had thought it would be Adong, but as soon as he pushed it open, he saw two unfamiliar young women. The one in front that knocked was a young maid, and the one behind her ought to be from a well-to-do family. She wore a pink, straight-collared biza with narrow sleeves on her upper body, and a pink, pleated skirt on her lower body, looking quite charming as she stood there. He was somewhat surprised, but they were even more so. The maid took a few steps back, looked up at the signboard, then muttered to herself. "It's not the wrong place." "Who are you two looking for?" he asked. "General Sui Beihu." "Does he no longer live here anymore?" He gave an O and said, "He does, but he's been on an out-of-town mission lately. I'm a friend that lives with him. If you want to find him, you should come back in a few days." The maid was quite lively, her eyes scanning all around. "What friend of his are you? Why haven't we heard of you before?" He was donned in a light, sky blue cotton chenai with a silk belt tied around his waist, but he had been lazy. After changing his clothes when he got home, he didn't use a jade pendant to weigh down his clothes and or anything like that, which was popular these days. Added onto his pain face due to his stomach ache, he looked like a down-and-out scholar that had repeatedly tried and failed the exams. It was pretty difficult for someone to associate him together with a government official. Evidently, the maid grew suspicious towards his self-claim as Suizhou's friend. The lady behind her furrowed her brow slightly, seeming to take Tang Fan as a thief that had broken in while the owner was away. "May I ask your name, good sir?" "My Biaoji loves solitude by nature." "Why would he invite you to live with him?" Mr. Tang was a bit exasperated. He wasn't universally loved or anything, but he had never previously come across a situation where he was disdained. Besides, was anyone ever born liking solitude? Were it not for the circumstances in the Sui residence, Suizhou likely would have never moved. From that sentence alone, he could tell that this cousin of his didn't understand the man at all. "My name is Tang Fan. I'm assigned at Shuntian Prefecture. Because I couldn't find housing, I had to rely on your cousin's help, which is why I'm living as a guest in his house for the time being." Since he had stated his identity, the maiden's suspicious expression loosened a little. "We'll return, then, and wait a few days for him to come back. I'll trouble you with informing him that I came looking. Is your surname Zhou, miss?" She nodded. He knew that Suizhou's maternal grandmother had a son in addition to his mother, and because he was appointed elsewhere, his family had moved with him. Now, they were here. Maybe they had come back to the capital to visit their elders, or were preparing to settle down. It was clearly unsuitable for him to ask more after it, though. "Rest assured, miss. I'll pass the message on to Guangchuan when he gets back." The maiden mn'd at first, then was a bit shocked. "You call him by his courtesy name? He lets you? Aren't courtesy name just what you let your peers call you? Why is that so surprising?" he wondered. She blinked. "He usually isolate himself. I've rarely seen him interact with any friends. Looks like you have a great relationship with him." He smiled, not wanting to talk anymore. "It's all right." Well then. From what he had seen, Suizhou's circle of friends definitely wasn't broad, but he was in no way reclusive or anything. Moreover, he had that batch of subordinates in the Northern Administrative Court Division that he needed to tame into obedience, so if he really did isolate himself, he would never be able to handle them. At most, he was reserved with his words, did things cleanly and abruptly, and appeared to be a bit cold. This lady seemed to be brimming with curiosity, asking him a lot of questions pertaining to Suizhou. With his smarting stomach, he had no energy to deal with her. His typical smile and speech that were like cleansing spring breezes disappeared. Noticing his disinterest in talking with her, she eventually got a bit displeased. She glared at him, then turned and left. The maid quickly chased after her, not neglecting to turn her head, and glared at him, too. He felt that it was a bit ridiculous but couldn't care right now, as his stomach came to ache more and more during that interval of small talk. He was in so much pain, that he had to hold the door frame as he bent down to sit right on the sill. Swift footsteps sounded in front of him. He raised his head to see some people from the Western Depot. "No matter what urgent task you all have, I can't walk right now," he said weakly. He pledged to never eat no mai chi on an empty stomach again. Notes. Biao Ge, male older cousin, used in relation to descendants of father's sister and both mother's brother and sister. No mai chi, glutinous rice dumpling. End chapter. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 39. Traders get all the luck. The Western Depot wardens looked at each other awkwardly. One amongst them cupped his hands and said, "Master Tang, Chief Eunuch Wang ordered us to invite you into the palace. He's currently waiting for you at its gate." His tone was polite. That wasn't because the fiendish depot wardens had suddenly switched natures into becoming docile and polite, but because they had witnessed how Tang Fan handled the East Palace case. Even Wang Zhi had never ordered him around during his investigations. They thus went with the direction of the wind, showing him some degree of courtesy. Of course, if Tang Fan refused to go with them while they were under Wang Zhi's orders, they would be exactly like they had been on the night Tang Fan was called into the palace, carrying him away without another word. That was called being soft first then rough next, using etiquette first then force if needed. Tang Fan understood that much, and had no choice but to stand up. Rubbing his stomach, he felt like it wasn't as bloated as it had just been a while ago. "All right. Let's go. Many thanks for your consideration. Do you want to ride a horse or sit in a sedan chair?" "We're prepared for either," the other smiled, asking after his opinion. If there was a sedan chair, he certainly wasn't going to feign politeness. He immediately climbed onto the empty one that had two porters in the front and back of it. Perhaps they had been pressured by a volatile superior like Wang Zhi for too long, as the Western Depot's work efficiency was really not lagging in the least. As soon as Tang Fan was settled in, he felt the chair suddenly lift up into the air like it was ascending, then start advancing at lightning speed. Uniquely, the vehicle swayed only slightly, even less prominently bumpy than level ground itself. He raised the curtain to peek outside. The surrounding scenery seemed to fly backwards, swooshing by in a flash. It was too much for the eye to see. After watching it for a good minute, he felt dizzy, so he quickly put the curtain down and availed himself of this time to shut his eyes in rest. Once he did, he fell right asleep. He was later woken up by getting patted on the shoulder a few times. Then he saw that a Western Depot warden was leaning into the sedan chair, who declared, "We've arrived at the palace gates, sir." Upon opening his eyes, he felt a lot better and the ache in his stomach had disappeared with his short nap. He couldn't help but stretch out his back, stooping over to disembark the sedan chair. Wang Zhi was waiting there, face full of impatience. Seeing that he had finally arrived, he turned and walked inside without room for argument. "Come quick. If you're late, you're not going to learn anything." "What?" Tang Fan was flabbergasted at that out-of-nowhere sentence. "Yuan Liang committed suicide by swallowing gold." Wang Zhi shot him a glance. Huh. He was actually quite shocked at this. "What did you do?" "What did I do? I didn't do anything." Wang Zhi raged. "What went on, then? How come I was only gone for half a day and does the crowned prince know?" he quickly asked. Wang Zhi had called him in, so he surely wanted him to understand all that had happened. He used the time they traveled to the palace of celebrating humanity to sum things up. Tang Fan then learned that after he and Wang Zhi had parted ways, the latter went right to find Yuan Liang and ask him about Han Zhao's cause of death. The man gave 3 I don't knows to every question, of course, shoving the blame entirely elsewhere. As he refused to confess, Wang Zhi had said to himself, "I'm worried about the crowned prince and intend to cover for you all. Since you still refuse to admit it, you can't blame me for this." He menaced Yuan Liang, saying that he already knew about how he schemed things with Furu. If he refused to tell the truth, he would go report this to Consort Wan, and then his death would be even more terrible, as it would implicate the crowned prince, deposed empress, and the rest alongside with him. Despite the threat, he wasn't thinking to actually go and do that. Han Hui had killed Han Zhao, but he still had to choose the exact time that Consort Wan would be sending the soup. There was bound to have been cooperation on both sides for this to come together. One was Yuan Liang, who had walked with Han Zhao into the palace and was also the only one that could have interacted with Han Hui. The other had to have been someone on Consort Wan's side that had prompted her to send the soup, having discussed with him ahead of time and decided on a particular day to execute it. The entire sequence was precisely what Tang Fan supposed things had gone and discussed with Wang Zhi. Consort Wan was an exceptionally covetous woman and could really hold a grudge. When she hated someone, she would hate them to the bone, never to change her mind. Take the crown prince, for example. Before Zhu Yushan's appearance, harem women that had heirs would only get wiped out by Consort Wan. Because the emperor favored and approved of her, none of the major officials in court dared to say anything. It got to the point that the emperor didn't have a single son as his age advanced, his family line about to be cut off right before his very eyes. Then, a crowned prince had shown up, surprisingly already 6 years old. In other words, Consort Wan had been kept totally in the dark by a group of people inside the palace that he had grown up right under her nose. A feeling of betrayal of that magnitude was unbearable to her, who had always tyrannized the harem, so even if she knew it was only sensible to have a crowned prince, she would still hold a grudge afterwards, to the extent that she arranged the death of his mother, Lady Ji. Zhang the eunuch that had helped conceal the prince's existence, even killed himself by swallowing gold out of fear of her retaliation. Inferring from her conduct and personality, she would definitely prefer to help another concubine's son to be the crowned prince than allow Zhu Yushan to be it. Since she didn't want him to be the crowned prince, why would she ever send him soup to earn his favor? Obviously, that idea was originally couldn't have been hers. Someone close to her side must have repeatedly urged her to do it in order for her to change her mind. The candidates who were attending her and could advise her into committing such actions were quite few in number. Furu, an elder maid that she relied upon in no small measure, was certainly one of them. Tang Fan and Wang Zhi hence deduced that if Yuan Liang had plotted with someone from Consort Wan's side, Furu was definitely the most likely. Wang Zhi couldn't directly go to Consort Wan and explain the situation, however. If he did, their collusion would come to light, and since Yuan Liang was the prince's attendant, Consort Wan would inevitably think that this was the young prince trying to frame her. She would then inevitably try to settle the debt with him, after which Wang Zhi would not be able to attain his goal of building connections with both parties. Furthermore, Furu was her maid. Why would she collude with Yuan Liang for no reason to do something like this? As that was so, Wang Zhi had to think up a way to pick the murderer out from behind the scenes, while also not giving Consort Wan an excuse to purge the imperial harem again. This wasn't because he had a compassionate heart, of course. It was because he wanted political congeniality. Well, it didn't matter what kind of heart he had, really. In any ways, he had to put in the work. He wanted to take Yuan Liang straight back to the Western Depot for interrogation, but if he did that, the disturbance would be even greater and it would alert Consort Wan to it. He had to take the opportunity of the prior investigation to have people secretly check out Furu while he himself simultaneously sought out Yuan Liang in private, then told him that Furu and Han Hui had already confessed. That would thus give Yuan Liang the sense that he should have a bit of tact by confessing as well, so as to avoid dragging even more people into this, or shouldering all sorts of torture where he couldn't die even if he wanted to. Wang Zhi had exposed everything out. Yuan Liang could dispute nothing, yet looked quite calm, merely telling Wang Zhi that he had acted completely on his own and was hoping that no one else would be implicated. Lady Ji had entrusted him with watching the crown prince grow up, so he couldn't pull him into the muck over this. Wang Zhi had said disdainfully, "Did you need to justify yourself that much? If I had wanted to blow this up, I would have long gone to Consort Wan and taken the credit there." Receiving his guarantee, Yuan Liang said that he wished to be able to see the crowned prince one more time as he still had something to say to him. Wang Zhi had agreed. After that, he rushed out of the palace and made Tang Fan come over. After he listened to all of that, Tang Fan was quiet for a short moment. He killed himself after meeting with the crowned prince. The other nodded. Swallowing gold would not cause an immediate death. There's still some time. Only us two understand the story behind this in its entirety. I had you enter the palace because I want you to go ask for clarification on why he did all of this. Try to determine if it stemmed from a personal reason or if there's somebody else scheming behind him. Also, we need to discuss how to handle Furu while keeping everything from the consort. Ever since Yuan Liang had requested the meet-up with the prince, Wang Zhi had anticipated that he would do this, because if he wanted to safeguard the boy, he alone needed to die to clean everything up. After that, Furu would be blamed for the crime, Han Hui would get punished, and dead men simply could not tell any tales. As they were discussing, they had arrived at the palace. The crowned prince quickly came out to see them. His eyes were a bit red around the edges, though his expression was calm as ever. It was unclear if he knew anything, as he simply said to them, "In subject Wang, Prefect Tang. Attendant Yuan is seriously ill. He wants to see you." Putting on a convincing act, Wang Zhi nodded with dramatic earnestness. "Please lead the way, Your Highness. Follow me." It had to be said that the group serving the crowned prince in the East Palace had a high degree of loyalty, since they had pretty much risked their lives back in the day. Keeping Consort Wan in the dark, secretly helping Lady Ji raise the prince, then watching him grow up at the time, no one knew if he could be the crowned prince, nor did they know if the child might die prematurely, but they were well aware that if Consort Wan found out, complete catastrophe awaited them. They had still done it, even so. There was no reason for it. All that could be said was that no matter how dark a place was, there would still be kindness within it. It was precisely owed to them that the prince did not go astray, still looking towards the light with a pure and good heart. Tang Fan had managed to glean out his innermost character from just his essay and calligraphic style. He also believed with conviction that the boy had nothing to do with this. The East Palace became its own little world, disregarding the wind and rain outside. Many used their own lives to shield the young prince, and that wasn't something that money and treasures could shift. Even Wang Zhi's forces had never pierced it. Truthfully speaking, with such a place and such a group, Tang Fan was confused as to why Yuan Liang would do this. The prince brought them to a small, unremarkable room in the East Palace. Yuan Liang was currently laying back on a bed, his complexion waxy and yellow. He looked like a completely different person from before. Breaths coming like spider silk, it seemed like he didn't have much time left. Suicide by swallowing gold was a more horrible and painful death than either hanging or poisoning. However, in the palace, hanging oneself was not a very easy task, as one needed the tools and to also not get discovered. Poison was even harder to find. Swallowing gold was much easier in comparison. With a position like Yuan Liang's, he was bound to have accumulated a lot of private funds over the years. As long as he had some gold pieces cut up into small bits and then mixed into wine, he could accomplish his aim of suicide by drinking it. It was a common method used by those within the palace. In fact, Zhang Min had used it himself back in the day. Bringing the subject back, Consort Wan's temper was awful and she often beat and scolded the maid serving her. If it were claimed that Furu got the mind for revenge because she couldn't stand the woman's behavior, Tang Fan could believe it, but why wouldn't she just poison her, as opposed to this roundabout way? That was another point of doubt yet to be resolved. Even if Yuan Liang was stepping into his death, he remained calm. Seeing them arrived, he first asked the crowned prince to leave, then spoke of his own accord before they could ask anything. I know what you want to ask. I'll explain it all, but I beseech you for one thing. His Highness never had a single thing to do with this. After I die, please don't get him involved, all right? Wang Ji was expressionless. Don't talk nonsense, and explain quickly. Why did you do this? Yuan Liang sighed, looking quite miserable. When I had first entered the palace, I was assigned to the library to help and clean. I was young then. I wasn't very smart and often ended up offending people and would then get beaten. Fortunately, Sister Ji from the library constantly defended me and even taught me how to read. When I was punished with no food, she would split her daily portion with me. I will never forget her kindness for all my life. One day, I noticed that she was a bit off. She couldn't eat and vomited often. I worried that she was ill, but after asking her over and over again, she told me that she might be pregnant. After learning that the child was the emperor's, I was both happy and concerned for her. Happy, because there were no heirs in the harem at that time, and if she had given birth to a boy, she was certain to become a concubine, and the boy might be granted the title of crowned prince. Concerned, because Consort Wan ruled the imperial harem, even deposing the empress because she offended her. The consort had no offspring then, so how could she tolerate her having any? Indeed, not long passed before Consort Wan heard the news that Sister Ji was pregnant. She sent a maid over to compel her into an abortion. Sister Ji was nice, and those that had received her kindness like me, were many. After the maid forced her to take the bowl of abortion medicine, we begged her not to do anything else and to please report to the consort that she had already taken the abortion medicine, but there was no reaction, that she must have taken ill and was not actually pregnant. Such infinite blessings that the abortion medicine did not do much and His Highness was born. You can now see that the hair on top of his head is sparse. That was the effect of the abortion medicine. As he recalled the past, the look in his eyes became distant and moist. Once he was born, Sister Ji hid him every day. Her health was poor and she received no rations. His food wholly relied on us to search for, while we also hid him from the consort's eyes and ears every day. We were scared out of our minds. This went on until he grew to 6 years of age. Zhangmin announced his existence to His Majesty, and then he was named the crowned prince. We were all elated, happy for her, because we thought that her good life had finally come. Unexpectedly, a few months after he was established, she died. His tears dripped down, every word seeping blood. Everyone says that good people get good karma, but I don't understand. She was such a good person. Why didn't she get a good end? That's a question that he couldn't answer. Even Tang Fan had no answer for him. There was always a good deal of people in this world that would harm other people's interests and even their lives, for their own personal gains. Consort Wan couldn't give birth to a son, then the crowned prince was established. Was there any benefit for her to kill Lady Ji? Standing at her position, she would surely say that there was. It's because she hated Lady Ji for having a son while she couldn't. It's because she hated her for hiding that son's presence from her for so many years, and she hated being taken for a fool. It's because she feared that when the crowned prince ascended, Lady Ji would then be the Empress Dowager, while she would only be a consort. Even with all of the above, she could still come up with plenty more reasons if need be. In her heart, the words forgiveness, lenience, and concession did not exist. All the current officials in court, including the high-up ministers of the cabinet, did nothing the whole day long. They could get by in life, but could their full halls of descendants enjoy the utmost of splendor? When Consort Wan eradicated the harem women and imperial heirs, their positions as pillars of the nation were in vain, since they did not do anything. They were afraid that Consort Wan would use that pillow talk that would cost them their officials' hats. Due to their incompetence, it allowed her to do as she pleased. In contrast, it was the eunuchs and maids of the palace that civil officials typically looked down upon, who staked their lives to protect the crowned prince, yet they did not have good endings. Was it a truth that since the beginning of time those who were loyal would be met with persecution while traitors would get all the luck? End chapter.